In this video, I'm going to show you how to replace the outer tie rod on this Ford F-150. Just so you know, after this job, you will need an alignment. Let's get started. Let's remove the wheel. You would want to use a 21mm socket. If your lug nuts are swollen like mine, because underneath the chrome cap it rusted, you would want to use a 22. And remove the wheel. And now with the wheel off, let's break the jam nut loose, which secures the inner to the outer tie rod. To do this, use a 24mm wrench, slide it on here. We're going to have to turn clockwise. We're looking at the threads backwards here, so if needed, use a rubber mallet on the end of your wrench. Perfect. This is what you're aiming for. You want just the mounting nut or the jam nut to spin, not the entire tie rod. If the entire tie rod, the inner, starts spinning, which does happen, you're going to have to hold it and then try to break this nut free, either now or later, but this does need to properly adjust and lock in. So at this point, this is loose, so we can move on. And we're going to move on to removing the 21mm mounting nut that holds the outer tie rod stud onto the knuckle. Get your socket on here. Take it off. Now you're going to use a hammer, hammer the knuckle until the tie rod pops up. Perfect. Take this out of here. Now we have to remove the outer tie rod off of the inner. I did spray this with rust penetrant already. Should have already mentioned that. It's always a good idea, especially since on this particular application, the threads on the end here are exposed. They will rust, and you have to overcome this rust to get the outer off of the inner. Use a 15mm wrench on this cutout here on the inner, and hopefully you can spin this. I can move it back and forth. Looks like it's going to take a lot of force to spin off of here because of the rust buildup. So what I'm going to do is actually put it back into the knuckle, and I'm going to use the leverage of my wrench to twist this inner tie rod off of the outer. Now, because I'm not taking the outer tie rod off of the inner, what I'm going to do is count the threads here, and typically I would count the amount of turns it takes to take the outer off the inner and then put it back the same amount of turns. Regardless of what you do, you will still need an alignment after this. So I'm just going to count the threads, make sure that after I'm done with the job, the same amount of threads are here as there were when I started. We're almost at the end here. Take this back out of the knuckle, and at this point, oh, looks like I still need my wrench, but at this point, I should be able to spin the outer off of the inner by hand. Yep. Okay. There we go. There's your outer tie rod. I like to take some anti-seize and put it all over the threads here, especially on the end where the outer tie rod will stay and secure itself on. This will prevent it from getting seized in the future. And I also like to put it on the inside part of the threads here. Not that anything is going to be attached here, but hopefully this will coat them and prevent rust from building up. At this point, move the jam nut, work it over the anti-seize so you can get anti-seize inside of the threads of the jam nut also, and coat the area that wasn't coated. Now take the outer tie rod and put it back. Try to estimate the same distance here as there was before. Okay, this is about the amount of threads I had sticking out. So at this point, let's put this back into the knuckle. Might need to move this around a little bit. Put the mounting nut back on. Snug it up. And let's torque it to 85 foot-pounds. That's it right there. However, now you want to make sure, in this case, because it's a castle nut with a cotter pin, that the slot for the cotter pin actually lines up. In my case, it barely lines up over here. Regardless of how far you are, always tighten, never loosen to line this up. For me, that's perfect right there. So I'm going to stick the cotter pin through from the front to the back. That way, when it comes time to taking it out, it's a lot easier. You want to bend this over. There we go, just like that. Careful not to hit the threads. So that's locked in now. At this point, we can re-secure the jam nut up against the outer tie rod. the anti-seize is going to kind of get all over here. So once you do this, just wipe off the excess. Grab your wrench and make it nice and snug. There we go. Give it a couple taps. And then bring the tie rod back so it's level and not at an angle on the knuckle. The rest will be up to the alignment professional to get it nice and lined up. So having said that, let's put the wheel on. Let's get the wheel on. Start on all 6 of your lug nuts, bottom them out, and torque them to 150 foot-pounds in a cross pattern. There you have it. Take it for a road test.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.